Welcome to episode 69 of the Monday Morning Critic. Today we have a great guest. He's director, writer, Rob Schmidt. Rob, very happy to have you on the show today.
Hey, I'm really glad to be on.
Yeah, so I'm going through your life. I was researching late last night, by the midnight oil, as they say, and, you're a guy who strikes me as somebody who's paid his dues. In other words, even if you go through your IMDb, I know you do the directing and the writing, that I understand, but you're actually the guy that is the grip and the gaffers and all that electrical stuff. Talk a little bit about that, Rob, that part of your, being behind the scenes of a set.
Oh, sure. Well, I went to film school, and I started working as an assistant in photography, and then as a production assistant, and I moved into camera and lighting departments. I was a camera PA, and I worked as a swing, and then as a grip, and as an electrician, and then as a gaffer, which is like a chief lighting technician. So I was moving up in, camera and lighting, and I was also making short films, and I got to a point after grad school where I had kind of two parallel careers, and one was that I had started DPing, being director of photography on music videos, which was great, but was also a lot of work and really time consuming. And then, I was trying to make a feature and to direct a feature that I had written, and they were both really great paths that I was excited about, and they were both hard. And I eventually I stopped working as a cinematographer and just focused on trying to get my first film done. And what I did instead was mainly carry cable around, electrical cable for lighting, and often not on set. Like I'd be pre-rigging, so I'd be 5 miles away from where the camera was, and but it was there was no stress to it, and I knew how to do it, and it was a good workout. And I would get done in like 8 to 10 hours, and be able to go home and think about my movie. And also, truth be told, often I'd be by myself, and I would take phone calls and try to get my movie set up.
Yeah, and at this time you have your BFA and your MFA, right? Your Bachelor and Master of Fine Arts. Is that correct?
That's right. I had gotten my master's from AFI, the American Film Institute, and I was wearing a tool belt and carrying heavy cable around.
Yeah, and I guess my big question is, how did you find this? Did you find this a big part of developing into the director you are today? Did you find it very helpful to kind of do these different, outside of writing and cinematography and this other things, you were doing kind of the work that goes into making a great movie, that goes into making a great television show, or as you said, even music videos. Did you find that this helped you in the long run?
You can't. I don't know whether it certainly didn't hurt me.
Right.
It certainly didn't hurt me, and I think it did help me. I spent, I've spent probably thousands of hours on set, and usually very close to the camera. So I see a lot of how that works, and I've logged a lot of time seeing how that works, which is great. What I didn't get to see much of was development, and I didn't get to, when you're wearing a tool belt, you don't think of the producers and the production executives and whatnot as your, friends. Sometimes they're friendly, but you see them as like other,
Right.
And so I brought that baggage, and a lot of film schools also, because often the teachers aren't happy about the way their careers went. They kind of teach you to not like the people who get films set up, And so I didn't start out realizing that those people were my allies. I thought they were obstacles.
Right.
But I will say that, like, being on set like that is fantastic. And I saw, I bet 1,000 different things go wrong and 1,000 different things go right, And so that helped me a lot. Now I will say that I took a break for when my daughters were young. I was on a TV show in Vancouver, and my 3-year-old came up to visit, and she went up to some strangers in a elevator at the Sutton, and she said, "My daddy lives in a hotel house," and and my partner said, "No, no, no, he doesn't. Daddy lives with us, you know." But it was pretty clear that I didn't live with them,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
really. And
yeah.
so I took a bunch of time off, and I took a bunch of time off and just taught. And when I got back on set a couple of years ago, the things had changed a lot. And one of the things that had changed is that directors sit by the monitor and they don't, stand by a camera and watch the actors very often. And that's I had grown up watching directors do that and doing that myself. And I sometimes, even now, I'll stand in the middle of there'll be a lighting situation, and instead of being like hanging out by the monitor and reading the script again or whatever, what I end up doing is walking into the middle of the guys that are working, guys and gals that are working, and they're just like, "What the hell is this guy? You're in the wrong place,"
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, that was a long-winded answer to your question, but
No, it's an effective answer, and yeah, I totally get that. And you briefly touched on you did teach. What was the official film studies, or what was the exact course that you taught, Rob?
I taught filmmaking, and I still teach filmmaking. I'm the director of production at Emory.
Yeah, so you teach filmmaking, and I got to imagine there's so much to that, right? Because, like, my eventual long term goal is I'd love to shoot a documentary, and I've had some great directors like you and the people that have done documentaries and so forth. To me, I can't wrap my head around how you put that, even as a director, how you put that together and how you would teach this to your students, like how you put it together, how you take shots, cinematography wise, and make it look so great. There's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. How do you teach filmmaking to like? I know it's not. This is not an easy answer, I get, but where do you start? Like, where do you? These kids, I must be eager. They must be excited. They got this great director that teaches them. How do you? Where do you start teaching them about filmmaking? Where is ground zero per se? Where do you start?
Yeah, well, I have I've done this long enough that I have a really specific plan for that. Is is I talk about sound and image and montage, and then I show them the French New Wave film La Jetée, the Chris Marker movie,
Mm.
which is just it's just slides and music and voiceover, but it's great. It's a great movie, and it has 12 Monkeys is based on it. Like 12
Mm.
Monkeys credits La Jetée as its story by or something like that. And then tell the kids to go out and take pictures and put them together on iMovie or Movie Maker, and put some music over it and put a voiceover over it and have it turned into present for the next class. And that's a really simple thing that becomes really powerful. Usually students are surprised at how effective they can be. And the truth be told, it's that they pick really good music, and
Yeah, right, right, right.
but that's fine. Like, that's great if you like discover that you can, make a powerful piece of media, like by picking out music that touches you and then putting, your ideas over it in audio, and, putting some shots that are meaningful to you on it. That's great. And so we do that, and then I give them their next assignment, and we just like, I think that you learn filmmaking by making films, and so I make them make a lot of films.
Yeah, and that's such a great answer. And are there other movies that you introduce as like, wow, this movie does a really great job at setting up a movie score. This one's really great at how it uses the cinematizer. Other movies you introduce as movies of reference, as points of reference.
Yeah, well, we do a lot of that. However, I'll say that the movie that I show for advanced students, we have a class where for 15 weeks, you spend 15 weeks making a single film, um, which is it's a big deal for them. And we start that class by watching Living in Oblivion, which is a good film. It's not a great film. It's a good film, but it what it does is show all the horrible things that go wrong on an indie film.
Right, right.
And that's really I think it's very valuable for new filmmakers to watch that, I think.
What's the question you get a lot, Rob, as a professor, as somebody who knows filmmaking? Is there a question that you get almost like clockwork during these classes?
Boy, let me think about that. Well, I'll tell you, the kids that research who I am ask me how to make horror films, and yeah, so that's a common question I get, and I think that the thing that I want to say often is that unless you like horror, you shouldn't make horror films.
I agree. Yeah, that's a great question. Yep, and it's just like even like podcasting. There's people that want to be great podcasters but don't put in the work or don't realize where they stand, and it makes sense if I relate to it in that way. And I gotta say, your class seems, I'm not saying this because I'm speaking with you, but your class seems like a lot of fun. I mean, doing my research, I definitely stumbled on a couple of these student videos you're talking about, and it's really cool to watch these kids make. Like, I was almost, I don't know, like jealous in a way. I wish I could redo my my early 20s again and have a class like this. It's later in life that I figured, wow, this is a really cool thing. And I gotta say, your class seems like a lot of fun. And boy, what I wouldn't have given to have a class like this.
Huh? That's really sweet of you to say. Yeah, it's fun if you're excited about making content, and yeah, it's fun for those kids. Some kids take it because it's a Bachelor of Arts program. They take it because they need to take a media making class. And for them, the volume of work kind of blows their mind.
Yeah, I bet.
Which isn't work if you love making films. You just do it.
Yeah, and I gotta say, it's just so when they know, and I'm gonna get into this a little bit later. When they know that like you've directed one of my favorite all time movies, and I'm being sincere here, is Wrong Turn for a lot of reasons. Are they like, does that impress them? Are they like, hey, that's pretty cool, my professor has done this? Like, do you think they're impressed by that?
I think my undergrad, there was none of my teachers had done anything that I'd heard of, and I went to like a good undergrad, but they and we watched their films. And they were, sort of experimental films or whatnot. And so I think it's nice for students to be able to, tell their parents or their friends, hey, look, this is the thing that my professor did, and to be able to, Google their work and whatnot is,
yeah. And Rob, it just brings me to that old, because I work with kids as well, and much younger kids in a different level, but it shoots down that old thing, those who can't do, teach, right? But you teach, but you've certainly done, and boy, I gotta tell you, it's just really impressive to have. It's almost in a way like Indiana Jones teaching archaeology, right? Because you've done it. You've done directing to a highly effective level. So I gotta say that the proof is in the pudding there, and that's gotta put I don't know. I don't want to say kids that sometimes kids have. They worry about their professors and their effectiveness. That's got to put that at ease when someone walks into your classroom.
Yeah, that's cool. That's nice to hear. Yeah, it's a challenge to do both. And last year I did a lot of, and this year so far I've done a lot of directing, and it's challenging to do both. But it's good. I wouldn't have it another way. So
yes. So I've asked you questions about your students. How about you, as somebody who's obviously in love with filmmaking? It screams in your work. What films have you been motivated by? Actors that have really, or movies or directors that have really, Stephen King talked about in 2003, said Wrong Turn was easily the best movie of the year for him. That's got to be a huge compliment of there's no one really who's an authority like he is. What are there other people that kind of motivate you as an artist?
Boy, that's a great question, and I wish I had a good answer for you. I have in my life consumed like a lot of content, and I just like I grew up my safe place where I felt comfortable, and this is I'm an old guy, was movie theaters. Like I would go to like I would leave school and ride my bike to the movie theater and watch like whatever was playing by myself, which as I say it now, it sounds kind of pathetic, but I would literally do that, and I would like not know what the movie was that I was sitting down to watch. And I took a lot of film studies courses. Like I've taken let me figure this out. I've taken about 15 different film studies courses in my life.
Wow.
And so I've seen like a lot of movies from all over the world, and there's just all sorts of types of films and actors and filmmakers that I just like absolutely adore. And I couldn't really say that one person. You know what I could say is that I was lucky in that Jonathan Demme liked one of my movies, and he was kind to me and allowed me to. He executive produced on a project I had that never got made, but he did executive produce on it, and he let me camera operate on a why am I forgetting his name? The boss, Bruce Springsteen, on 21 Shots, that music video. And but which, by the way, on that set, I was so excited and happy to be there that I was shouting at someone across the stage at Madison Square Garden. This is during a sound check, while Jonathan was between me and the person I was shouting at talking to Bruce Springsteen. And Jonathan Demme shushed me very loudly, and and my whole body started to sweat because I was mortified that
Yeah, that's
that I had like
to hear you say that about going to the movie theater. I don't find that I find that supremely impressive. I think I don't know. I find there's something very majestical and there's solace in a movie. I go to movies alone too. My girlfriend gets pissed at me for it, but I just there's something there, Rob, that it's better than any drink. It's better than any drug. There's something to be found at a movie theater that I can't explain, but when I'm there, it's beyond being in a comfort zone. There's no other place on earth I'd rather be than a movie theater. I don't know if that's how you felt, but I get why you went to the movie theater, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's not something that I think everybody has a hard childhood, at least as far as I know, everyone does. And from early on, I figured out that movies were a place where I could like sit and be comfortable, and there wasn't shit going on there except what was on the screen, and I could like consume what was happening on the screen and have feelings about it without it like harming me. And again, that sounds sort of grim, but
no, it doesn't. Not at all. It really doesn't.
Yeah, and so I at a really like visceral, like emotional level, I like understood content in that way as like a safe place to like feel and think and enjoy stuff, So yeah, it's a gift, I think.
Yeah, I completely get where you're coming from, and I get it. As a director, have you ever, I found that you used a couple actors, multiple times in your movies. Why is that? Is it that that what they're going to give you? Is it that you trust in them? Like, I'll just throw a name out there, Eliza Dushku. I get it. she's a great actor. She's beautiful. She has everything an actor should be, right? She's super talented. She even as an actor, she's no BS. She's awesome. And is there a reason why directors use an actor multiple times? In your case, I used her multiple times.
Yeah, it's if someone is great, like if the thing they make is great and delivers what you need for your story, why why would you take a risk with something that may not be great? And I just used Michael Ironside for the third time just a few weeks ago, and why would I hire somebody else? Like,
Right.
And I'll tell you, every once in a while you hire a new actor and they or crew person and it doesn't turn out right.
Yeah.
Like I had someone playing a queer part, and they after being hired and cast on the shoot day, expressed discomfort with representing a queer character, and it worked out, but that was a nightmare.
Right.
Like being on set 10 hours in, and to realize that the reason the performance is weak is because the person like will not inhabit the character that they were hired to play.
Yeah,
And I solved it.
yeah. So how do you? What do you do in that case? Is it like? And my next question, ironically, was going to be about casting an actor that later you've regretted because of situations, I suppose, that are out of your control, and they just don't go along with what you originally cast them for. Is there a lot of regret? Has there ever been regret on your end for assuming that you and the casting director have combined on this, and it's not just the casting director? Has there ever been regret for a role that you've seen in one of your shoots?
I mean, I've made some good stuff and I've made some stuff that's not so good, but I love, like, once I've made something, it's part of my, history. And like, it's like your children,
No, I get it.
You don't regret your, yeah. And, but I will say, there was one actor that I was warned about and I hired anyway because I was arrogant about my ability to work with actors, and then that actor behaved exactly the way I had been warned. But what happened? I learned something great from that. That is actually what I used on this last shoot. Is on that job there was like a super strong actor, charming, super smart. Jeffrey Wright, the actor Jeffrey Wright, was on it, and he was in a lot of those scenes, and he directed that actor. Like what I did was I told Jeffrey what I hoped to have happen, and she would listen to him but wouldn't listen to me, and so he got her to do the things that I needed done. And because I knew about that, because I'd done that before, that's what I did on this last shoot, and it worked great.
Yeah, and you mentioned Michael Ironside, who's just a great actor, and yes, your acting choices, Rob, I have to say, I like them a lot. You've given a chance to a lot of actors. I'm just going through a few of your movies, Alphabet Killer and a few others. You've got some great choices here to play some roles. Is how much of it is the casting director, and how much of it is you saying, you know what, I need to have Melissa Leo in this part. I need to have Elijah Dushku in this part. How much of it is you? How much of it is the casting director?
It's hopefully it's always a rich collaboration, like on everything. So I've worked with casting directors that I really like quite a bit, and for lead roles, you don't really, you don't get much of a choice because you need to put people in those parts who can be financed. You got some choice, but not a lot of choice. You
Right.
know, it's really the casting. Like the casting director has no influence over who plays the leads. The financiers control that, or the studio controls that. But it's the supporting roles where the casting director really comes into their own. Yeah, and they're painters just like a cinematographer is a painter. Only they paint with characters.
Yeah, yeah, and I had a casting director on. I want to say a few months back, and she was responsible for many of those awesome movies that we see in the '80s. Weird Science, 16 Candles, and Rob, it takes me a long time to realize how many people come into play when it comes to, you said it yourself, collaboration. That's one of the things. It's so many people involved. And one of the questions I have for you is, I had an actor on, I want to say a few months back also, and he said, being an extra is really not the way to get into acting. It's studying acting. It's going through a process like many of your students do. Would you agree with his sentiment in that regard, that as far as acting goes, and I suppose anything, if you wanted to be a director too, that it's about studying, it's about getting your feet wet, it's about putting images together to music, it's about all that stuff?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I think that acting is not acting, but making a living as an actor is it's a brutal career, because if you're out of your success, you're getting rejected at least once a week.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jennifer Lawrence, there'll be a part that she wants, and someone else will get it.
Mm.
Like that will happen to like a giant movie star, and if you're a journeyman actor, that's your job, is to go in and get whatever 8 auditions a week, and get rejected whatever 23 times a month, and get 1 gig a month, and that's like a really rough life. I can't imagine I'm too sensitive to do something like that. And so the people that like to be able to get into working, I think you have to do multiple things. You have to, well, you don't have to do anything, and people come up lots of different ways. I think you should definitely take classes and get your training down, and I think you should just audition as much as you possibly can. And I think that being spending time as an extra is not bad. There's nothing bad. I mean, it's the same as what I was doing really on set.
Right.
Is there's all sorts of good things that happen from it. And the fact is, like, extras get upgraded. I've like had an extra and liked them and given them a line.
Mm.
And then, suddenly you're not an extra. You're a day player on the show.
Right. Right. Yeah, but I think
So
with
I
you,
wouldn't.
with you, Rob, though, you had your MFA at this point, right? Like you I get what you're saying, and it makes complete sense to me. But now you've got me thinking that, yeah, wait a second, like you're right. You give somebody a line. Now we're talking a whole different situation, right?
In what sense?
In other words, so now you give somebody a line. So somebody's on. So say I'm a extra in one of your movies, right? And you
Yeah.
say, something, I like Derek. You know what? I'm going to give him a couple lines. Now we're not even talking extra anymore. Now it's like a whole new ball game. Now it's really it's I don't want to say a payoff, but it's become something else. It's become now this is something you can work off of. Like, you've done this person a huge I want to say favor, because it sounds like you're charity, but it's very it's a good position to be in, is my long-winded way about saying it. Like, that's what an extra, I believe, has to hope for in a best case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's like the best thing that can happen, I think.
Mm.
But it's not the only good thing that can happen. Like, being on set and seeing how, like, I was on the set of Noah a while back, and after Jennifer Connelly, I want to say it was Jennifer Connelly, yeah, she had finished, doing a close-up, and she came over to the monitors, just talking to, Darren, the director, and she
Mm-hmm.
said, I gave it to you I gave it to you three ways. I gave you a big one, a medium one, and then a small one, and you'll figure it out afterwards. And just if you're an extra, you get to overhear things like that,
Yeah.
that you wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah. So, wow. I mean, that you've kind of, in a good way, you've kind of, I find that movie to be fantastic. I think that
I love that movie.
Oh my goodness, Darren Aronofsky. Is that how you are you friends with him, or is that how you kind of got your way to the set? Is that how that works?
I went to AFI with Darren.
Yeah, he is a. You're both very good. I mean, he's a visionary in the way he sees.
He's better than I am.
No, oh, absolutely not. I would not say that. I think you guys are both very good in different ways, but I think I'm only saying this because you brought up Noah, because I love it. It's a movie that he makes movies that I think critics downgrade because they don't understand it. I don't think they're bad. I think people have a lack of understanding with not just Darren, with many movie makers. I don't think critics understand, and I think he takes chances, and I think that's a good thing for an artist.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you.
Yeah,
but the point still stands that I wouldn't like you can learn great things while you're on set as an extra. I mean, you'll spend dozens of hours just in very bored sitting in a holding area, but there's opportunities to learn great things.
Yeah, and I never thought about that way. The way you see things, Rob, it makes sense to me. Like, yeah, that's true. Like, if I was getting into movie, or if I was getting into acting, I'd want to see a great actor like Jennifer Connelly and how she reacts to things. I'd want to see what does she mean by that? Oh, I get what she means. But yeah, the experience. You're right. What you see, where else would you see something like that? You couldn't see it, I suppose, in a classroom. You're right. I mean, that's actually a really good point. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, it's interesting in that there wasn't a correct performance. There were different sizes, and she understood that, and she understood and trusted the director enough that she was willing to generate different sizes of the performance and allow the editor to, allow it to get worked out in the editing room.
Yeah, and just going into your work, it's such a. I love your filmography. And, I don't know if you're with me on this, but I hate the term cult classic. I really hate that word because it's like either a movie you like or you don't like it. It's almost like it's like an asterisk. Well, I like it, but it's a cult classic. No, it's either a good movie or it's not. I mean, granted, there's probably some gray area on some things, but I don't know how you feel about that term. One of my guests brought that up, and I was thinking about that, and he was right. Like, cult classic is a weird way of labeling something. Do you agree or disagree with that, Rob?
I as you brought that up, I realized when I was like 20, someone asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, I want to be a filmmaker and work in fiction and documentary, and maybe like make a couple of moments of film that people would remember. And I remember at the time I said, like, I can't remember the movie. It's a film noir where it's not James Cagney. Someone pushes an old lady down a set of stairs while she's in a wheelchair. But it's a really disturbing piece of footage, and I said, I want to just have made some moments like that. And I realized as you were talking that I have done that, and I have no problem with something being a cult classic.
Yeah, and I guess so. Like, I've heard people say, we'll use your Wrong Turn as a cult classic. It's not a cult classic. I think it's a great movie. Like, either way, it's a compliment, right? I get that. Like, so if somebody says cult classic, they're paying you a compliment. I get that. But it's like, I don't know. I know there's movies out there like The Room and others that get the cult label, and to some degree I understand. But I'm of the belief, Rob, that if you watch something and you love it, it's just a good movie. I don't know. Maybe my way of looking at things is a little bit too simplistic, but I don't know. That's how I feel.
Yeah, no, I hear you. For some reason that just reminded me. There's a pretty mean German producer who said this thing that I've always remembered and appreciated, despite his being mean. Is we were on a job and someone called a moment cheesy, and he said sometimes a little cheese is good. which is he likes food, and it was a reference to eating, but it's also like times, if someone's watching something and enjoying it, like saying that it's bad is how can you say that when you're like the point of it is to entertain you and you're being entertained?
I completely agree. I completely agree. You mentioned Darren Aronofsky earlier. Are there other directors that are friends of yours that you collaborate with? Like, so say you're editing, Rob, or say that you're thinking of a scene or how to do a particular shot. Is there somebody you call a colleague that is a director and say, what's your take on this? This is what's going on. How would you handle this? I don't want to say colleague, but that's kind of where I'm going with it. Like, is there other friends of yours like Darren Aronofsky that are in your position where you can kind of trust their feedback?
Yeah, there are, and the one that I'm most inclined to go to is Mark Waters, who directed Mean Girls and Spiderwick Chronicles and whatnot. And he's very clear and smart, and he has a photographic memory, actually. The only person I know with a photographic memory. So, not that you need that for that, but he's the person I would go to if I wanted to get an idea of what like a mainstream industry would want.
Yeah, and something like that's got to be important because he's a very talented director who, like you, is talented and you can bounce ideas off of, and his memory, I'm sure, helps the situation. But people, I think no matter what your profession, it's vital to have someone like that. Again, we use the word collaboration. In this way, it's in a different way, but it's still, you're collaborating with somebody and asking them their feedback, and so that's got to be helpful on occasion for you, Rob.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I bouncing material off of other people I respect is a really big part of getting stuff to work for me. So I do it. I do it regularly. In fact, I wouldn't. I can't imagine not doing that.
So let's get
And
to this. Good. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, and there are other people that are great at filmmaking, but they're not household names. So I'm not going to rattle them off.
Yeah, but still, they're names that help you along in the process, and to get somebody to look at something from a different point of view, I still have to believe is hugely helpful for you, Rob. I mean, that's whether they're known or not. That, I guess, that makes no difference. It's what they are to you, and it sounds like you have a lot of people that you could go to if if the situation presented itself.
I'd like to think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get into this. One of my favorite movies of all time, not a cult classic, is Wrong Turn, and the short answer: why does this movie work? I mean, I have my answer. Why does this work? In your opinion, Rob? Because many times I'll see a horror movie. There's one that came out recently, Truth or Dare, and I think a lot of horror movies, Rob, rely on the scares and the jumps and the cheap thrills to get them through start to finish. And I think that's where many movies fail in some regard. But I think I look at Wrong Turn. The first time I saw it, it's beautifully shot. And, Elijah Dushku doesn't play this like, oh, the scary girl that's always scared and running and screaming the whole time. She plays a badass. That is like, I don't know. There's so many reasons this movie works. What's your answer to that?
Boy, I think the reason it works is pretty much the reverse of what all the sequels are, which are great, and I'm very grateful, and my family is grateful, for the sequels. But I think that the reason the original Wrong Turn works is that it has graphic horror, but it also has very earnest performances that are heartfelt. And so when people are frightened, they are believably frightened on screen. And it also has like a clear goal. They want to get out of the woods. So it's easy. The story's easy to track. Like the audience has the same goal as the characters, and the audience is, I think, with the characters, and so it's fun to watch. That's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right, and you brought up, the movie also doesn't use like the cheap sex scenes. It doesn't use that either. It uses very, I don't know. I just love the way, and not to mention, to your disservice, they really didn't advertise this movie because of, just because of how the movie was. Am I right with that? They took down some of the promos and they limited the promos. Am I wrong with that, Rob?
It was a complicated time. It was a complicated time. Like they were actually going to pull the 20th Century Fox logo off of it, because I guess it was the Fox executives were having to testify before Congress about violence in film, and they were like, we can't release a film with beheadings in it and and testify about like not being responsible. So yeah, it was a tricky time. Like, and actually there was a thing that I was really excited about that we didn't get to do, because they were so like, we're not going to market the movie. And which was that the governor of West Virginia was very angry about the film, and made a bunch of statements about it. And I really felt like we should, taunt him, so that there would be a lot in the press about it. And they were like, "No, say nothing,"
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's funny because at the time, the film did okay. It did okay. It did actually better box office than it was projected to, because the word of mouth was good. But it didn't do great. And it was like, 5 years after it, when new executives, came through that hadn't watched it in theaters but had watched it, on TV, that they remember it differently than the people that were there when the theatrical happened.
I mean, the movie.
I don't know if that makes sense to you, but
no, it does for sure. But what I guess my point was that the movie has to be considered a success despite the obstacles you had in your way. Which, I mean, let's face it. Many people have an abundance. Many directors have an abundance of advertising, especially through a decent movie studio. And you had to overcome a lot of these obstacles, and the movie's still, like I said, a success. And my question to you, as you brought this up, the Wrong Turn sequels, do they have to run that by you? Do they have to? How does that work? Because they are very different from your movie, and by different, I'm trying to be nice. I don't know. Do they run that by you? Is that something you're connected to? How is that, Rob?
No, I have no control over the Wrong Turn sequels at all. They're they use the brand, but they're not something that I or Stan Winston, God rest his soul, had any control over.
And when you watch these, Rob, and I'm not trying to bait you into saying something bad, but when you watch these, are you ever like, my God, like, this is not what we went for. This is not, like, you're right. You said it. It's the complete opposite of what your movie was about, what your movie was going for. It is the slash 'em up. We're going to track you down, and the movie's going to end, the way it does. But I don't know. I don't know. That really, I don't know. Everyone always says when it comes to Wrong Turn, we love the first one, and then it's, I guess like an avalanche. But I don't know. Does it bother you at all, Rob? That kind of, something you put your heart into like that, and then Stan Winston as well, and then you have to watch the 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever kind of. Is that a fair question?
Yeah, it's a fair question, and I guess there's kind of two pieces to it, and one is that, like I said, I've watched a lot of different types of movies, and I've studied a lot of different types of movies, and if you enjoy something, it's good, I think, and those movies, those sequels serve an audience. And So I don't begrudge them that. And the other piece of that is that at the time that Wrong Turn came out, um, DVD profits were more valuable than theatrical profits,
Mm.
actually. And if they had made Wrong Turn 2 as a theatrical, Stan Winston and I would have been attached to it. And what they did instead was do a DVD release so that they could do something. Um, Often executives will, I guess it's because they're hired to make choices. They decide that they're the secret ingredient that makes something work. And they made the choice to do a straight to DVD release movie without Stan and I, rather than one that would have been theatrical with us. And that I used to feel bitter about, and as I'm saying it to you now, I'm trying to gauge whether I feel bitter about it, and I don't.
Mm. Mm.
But it's just a piece of history.
Mm. Boy, would I have liked to have seen a part two with you and Stan attached to it. And the person you're talking about, for those listening, that is Stan Winston, who's an iconic special effects makeup guy. He's as you mentioned, he has since passed, but what a talent, Rob, huh? What a supreme talent.
Yeah, he. I was about to say he was a really wonderful and remarkable man in like many, many, many ways, and I learned a lot from him.
And what was his role, Rob? I know he was a producer, and then he kind of gives these mountain men such an awesome look, and I know does he ever give you advice from a directorial point of view when you guys were shooting that movie? Was he ever like, "Hey, Rob, I think this looks better in this capacity, or maybe we should think about shooting over here"? Like, does he ever give you advice that is helpful or help, like, again, collaborative? Is it ever like that?
Yeah, he definitely did. And you know what? His Shane Mahan, who was his right hand and runs Legacy now, which is named for Stan.
Mm, mm.
Shane would as well, and those guys have worked with like every big director that's made studio movies. I mean, literally they have, and it was pretty awesome to get ideas from them. And to be completely honest, and I'm a little embarrassed by this, I was at that point nervous about pushing in on characters. Like it just seemed cheesy to me, and it's like something they do in like John Ford movie, like when, like what's his face? Who was the big Western star?
John Wayne.
Yeah, like John Wayne appears for the first time in the movie, and they push in to show that he's the hero.
Right, right.
And I was just like, that's so cheesy. But so I was very cautious about doing things like that, and those guys got me more excited about doing push-ins and whatnot. And now I kind of can't live without them. Sometimes because digital's so great, sometimes I push in on shots that there was no push in on.
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
I learned a lot of film form from them.
Yeah, I really, like, and I said, I'm not going to be redundant here. I really love the movie it's one of my all-time favorites. I'm not usually a huge kind of, hack 'em ups, horror movie, but I believe this is much deeper of a movie. You could tell that you put time into this, that it's just really well done on so many levels. And when anyone asks me, like, what's a good movie I can watch that's scary, I mean, I always send them in this direction, and they never come back disappointed. So, yeah, man, it's a phenomenal movie, and I've been dying to tell you that forever.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. There's something I want to say in case any up and coming filmmakers are listening to this, is that I got that movie not because I had done a movie before it called Crime and Punishment
Mm.
in Suburbia that had like a very violent killing in it. And I didn't get Wrong Turn because of that. I got Wrong Turn because I had made a little like indie New York drama called it's called Speed of Life now. It used to be called Saturn, but and that movie was pretty much only performance, And Stan, there were a lot of producers on that show, but Stan fought for me to get Wrong Turn because he liked Speed of Life, and he liked it because of the performances.
It just goes to show, Rob, you never know what people are going to notice and where that's going to bring you. You know, that's just such a great. I love hearing stories like that. Like, never in your wildest dreams would you imagine that that's what would have gotten you the opportunity for Wrong Turn, right?
Right, that's right. Yeah. It was like even to this day, I'm sort of like, no, that isn't what happened, but that is literally what happened.
One of the guys that directs horror movies that I'm not a fan of. I don't get Rob Zombie. I think he's a good musician. I don't get that fast pace. You know, let's shoot it up in 2 weeks and then we're done and let's move on. Like, I said that to somebody in an earlier interview who really loved Rob Zombie and they got really mad, but I don't get his style. I don't understand it. Have you had a chance to see some of his movies?
Yeah, I have, and I feel a little differently about him. First of all, Bill Moseley is a friend, and I really like Bill Moseley's work in those movies. And the other thing I think is a movie like the one that comes to mind is The Devil's Rejects. It's actually a pretty good movie, and it's about people that I'm interested in. So maybe that makes me sound insane, but
no, because you're the second person now, and Bill Moseley's a legendary actor. I'm not saying that, but I guess I'm 0 for 2 here with Rob Zombie because you're the second person that has said no. Wait a second, you might be off on this, and I totally accept that. That's part of loving movies. You know, you disagree, and I mean, I don't know. Like, you spent, I want to say 3 months in Canada directing this phenomenal movie. I don't know how somebody can do the same thing in 2 weeks and just be done with it and put together a great final product. It's a different type of movie, I guess, but maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way, Rob. I don't know. Maybe I'm insane.
I think there's two. One thing is process and one thing is product, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure which movie was it that he did in 2 weeks?
Well, I can't remember. There was one that he was on, and my memory is probably jaded here. He was on Howard Stern talking about how, he finished shooting in it was like a week or maybe 2 weeks. I forget what he said, but the time was like, it was just wrap it up and we're done. Like, it was one take. It was kind of like just quickly. And I don't, for the life of me, I probably should have my facts straight before I ask you that question. But yeah, it was a pretty but like I said, like, I'm wrong. I'm in the wrong in this because his movies get pretty decent reviews. And people love them as far as the horror genre. They love them. So I mean, maybe it's just a matter of taste. But as a director, you enjoy what he puts out.
Yeah, I got to say, like there, I was resistant to. No one else will ever say this. He is in the same category as Sofia Coppola, in that. They're people that come from privilege, and they're people that come from privilege, and I'm anxious to dismiss their work as filmmakers, but they make things that I really like, and I do really like The Devil's Rejects. So, I regard him as a good filmmaker, despite the fact that he's a rock star with the last name Zombie.
Yeah, and speaking of zombies, it seems like there's no shortage of movies that are filled with zombies now. Not to mention TV shows, obviously. But my goodness, what's the next thing? Because zombies, it seems like, Rob, that how long can we go with zombies before they? Because there's some classic movies that were made. Romero. We talk about great directors. I mean, God, the zombies. It seems to be the thing at this point. Like, will it ever wear out?
Yeah, I don't know what's next, but if you can figure it out, you'll make a lot of money. Unless you're like George Romero.
Oh boy, what was that movie? That's the other one I wanted to ask you about. The one that the one with the guy who's playing the guitar on the front of the truck. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed that I'm. It's that. It was nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards. Charlize Theron is in it.
Road Warrior, the new Road Warrior.
Yeah, what did you think? Did you get a chance? Did you see that?
Yeah, I did, and it's another movie that people love it. It's not my cup of tea, and I think I came to it with my expectations were Road Warrior was like a seminal film for me when I was a kid, and it played straight. Like the first, it was Mad Max was the first one, the Australian one. Road Warrior was the second, right?
Right.
And both of those movies play very straight and deadpan, and they created like worlds for me that I was like fascinated by and excited to be in and engaged in. And so I came to the remake of Road Warrior hoping that it was the same thing. And it's a kind of baroque like rock and roll fantasy instead. And that's cool. I just wasn't expecting that when I saw it, and so I didn't have a good experience.
Yeah, and you've given me almost an hour of your time here. I have one more question for you, Rob. I really appreciate it. What are your opinion on these reboots? These you kind of hinted at it a little bit here. I'm not trying to belittle Rob Zombie. He did a Halloween one. We're still going with the Freddy and Jason kind of things. Are we watering down the original product? Are we taking away from the original classics when we do that? And it's not just horror. This happens, comedy everywhere else too. Are we taking away from the original hits by doing that?
Um, by the way, the water in the background is an aquarium. Just so you know, I'm pacing nervously around my house, and occasionally the audience may be hearing water come and go. But to answer your question, I think that I think there's another way to look at that, and I had a really eye-opening meeting at when I was prepping Wrong Turn. I met at Platinum Dunes for the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is like a stunning and powerful film, like an amazing film. And it plays at, the Museum of Modern Art. Tom Gunning, one of the best film historians in history, talks about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a big deal. And I came to that meeting and I asked them, why do you remake that? And what they said changed my whole way of thinking about sequel. Is what they said was that they did marketing surveys, and something like 95% of film goers between the ages of 14 and 65 know the title Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and only like 5% of them have seen the film.
Wow.
And that's it. It's no more complicated than that. That is $30 million of advertising for free.
Jeez. Wow. I never even. Yeah, that's a great perspective on how to approach that. I never thought about that. Yeah. I mean, wow. As for the classics for you, Rob, what works? Exorcist. The usual names. Do those all work for you?
They all work. Like, this is the thing, is that anything that an audience responds to works. Like, I just that just is the way it is,
Yeah,
and I think I'm trying to get my head around, because I've been working. I live in Atlanta now, and I've been working in the Atlanta film industry, and it's great. But a lot of the production schedules are super, super aggressive, and Tyler Perry is here, and like the jobs that I do have pretty aggressive schedules, and the jobs that Tyler Perry's company does have insane schedules, like feature in 5 days, that kind of schedule. And I'm trying to understand how the audience for that content works, because there is an audience that like loves that content. But I haven't gotten my head around it.
Yeah, and there's been a ton of filmmaking in Georgia. Is that because of the tax situation, Rob? Is that why that is happening?
Well, yeah, it's because Georgia's people that aren't Southern are generally speaking frightened of the South, but the South has a lot of different like really awesome things in it, and Atlanta is a place that has just historically always been about business and making money. And there are conservatives here, but conservatives by and large who are interested in business,
Right.
And so Atlanta set up tax incentives that are really smart, and they're not are really smart and stable. And as much as anything, there may be places that have better tax incentives, but there aren't places that have stable or more consistent tax incentives. And so studios have wanted to do business in Georgia, and it's built like, a big giant industry here.
Yeah, and I was in
like the Marvel movies are shot here.
Yep. And I was in Atlanta in October. I love this. I love Atlanta. I mean, people are kind. I live in Massachusetts, but like I had a press pass to one of the comic conventions there, and I love it. I love the city. I always look forward to going there. The restaurants are fantastic. The people are great. Atlanta is one of my favorite cities that I've been to. Rob, what's it like living there? Do you find you enjoy it? Is it a great place to live?
Coming from the north, I have like a prejudice against the south, and it's taken me a while to get over that. The people here are, by and large, outrageously nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, the first few months that I was here, I ride a scooter sometimes, and I accidentally, I was in a hurry and I wasn't thinking, and I accidentally cut someone off, and they honked, and I pulled over, and I was like, this guy's gonna tear my head off. And he rolled down his window and went, "Are you okay?" Like he was worried that, because I had made a stupid choice, maybe there was something wrong,
Right.
Like he was only concerned for me. And I think that's a very like typical and nice like Atlanta interaction,
Yeah.
So there's a lot to like here. It is a little bland next to New York and LA, but there's loads of work here. I've been doing a bunch of true crime TV, and I did like 6 episodes last year, and I did like a Lifetime movie, and like there's lots of work here, which is great.
Yeah, and that's my before I get to that, your scooter incident, boy, that would have taken a different turn in New York and Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So Rob, what's ahead? Like I'm really rooting for you. You're a good guy. You give me over an hour of your time. I love your past work. I'm cheering for you now. What's ahead? Anything you want to kind of throw out there that I know you've been pouring your heart into a few things. What's on the docket for you?
Yeah, I just finished a pilot. I just finished a really cool pilot called Fran K. That is, it's like a modern day resurrection mad scientist show. That's pretty awesome and grim. It the one thing I'm concerned about with it is it's a little sad. Like it's actually a science fiction tearjerker. But we'll see, because we're just doing color and sound now, and I guess in a month or two I'll find out if anyone buys it.
Right. But
I love it.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you have out there that you've been? I mean, now with a pilot, Rob, is it a matter of people just taking it and just going with it? So if I'm like a Netflix exec, I could say, you know what, Rob's got this thing out. I like it a lot. Can I? They ask you for permission. They purchase it and they go from there. Is that how that works?
Everything's a conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha. Gotcha.
So we shall see.
Yeah. Best of luck in that. Yeah.
Thank you. It's really fun talking with you. I'm really grateful for this time.
No, you're a super guy. You have such an eclectic background. I could just keep talking to you about everything, but for your sanity and for the sanity of others in your home, I won't. But his name is Rob Schmidt. He's a director. He's a writer. Just a great guest. Rob, thank you so much for your time. You're really a great guy.
Terrific. Looking forward to hearing it.